Okay. If you say so, good morning and welcome as we start another week of the Clarence Bug Show. Here's hoping that your weekend was an absolutely marvelous one. If not, well, as we are fond of saying each and every Monday right about this time of the day, good Lord willing, you will still be here when the next one rolls our way, and you will have the opportunity to try it all over again. We start today's show talking about a sigh of relief being breathed by the international shipping community. I'm sure you're aware of the Ever Given, the largest container ship in the world that ran aground in the Suez Canal last week, leading to, in my memory, the largest backlog of ships, if you will, to pass through that vital canal in recent memory. The crisis lasted almost a week, and it is expected that it cost the international shipping community $9 billion in lost trade. It is finally freed from being beached, but no word just yet on when we can expect shipping traffic to return to normal. At last check, and this story broke about 2 hours ago, at last check, there were close to 400 vessels backed up because of the Ever Given beached in the Suez Canal, carrying everything from crude oil to cattle. And if ever, Mr. President, if you're listening, if ever there was another reason, a glaring reason why we need energy independence, well, there you go. Yet another reason. It is good news for the international shipping community. Only time will tell how much this is going to cost regular folks like you and I. When the shipping industry was losing $9 billion a day, it's a fairly safe assumption they're not going to eat that loss. That money's going to be made up somewhere. And as is typically the case, it's made up from the pockets of regular folks like you and I. Just a little bit of a heads up. Speaking of the weekend, violent weekend here in Baton Rouge. 3 shootings at last count, 3 fatalities, and of course, in no way, shape, or form exclusive to Baton Rouge, 4 in New Orleans. It is the continuation of a very, very troubling trend, and it is something that community leaders, for whatever reason, don't seem to be able to get a handle on. I am one that has said forever, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. It should be fairly obvious by now that the so-called leadership in these communities don't have a solution to this problem. It is something that everyday average Louisianians and Americans, for that matter, are going to have to get a handle on by themselves. Because if the past is any indication, looking at the trends, quote unquote, it is not going to get considerably better anytime soon. It's ironic, however, when you look at the crisis that is going on at our border. And yes, believe it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, it is, in fact, a crisis. But the justification for many on the left is that, well, you know, these people are fleeing horrible conditions in their country and the violence and the gangs there. It's something that, you know, we, as the leader of the free world, we have a moral obligation to help these people. Well, moral obligation aside, it's interesting that the resources that are being diverted and used to help people coming here illegally that are fleeing violence, many of them come from countries that have lower homicide rates than many cities in the US of A. The murder rates revealed in some US cities are higher than Latin America's deadliest countries. Statistics from the latest analysis, 2018, for homicides per 100,000 inhabitants shows, according to the U.S. Census Bureau and the CIA's World Facebook population data, reported by large U.S. cities with populations larger than 100,000 versus foreign countries, the murder rate in St. Louis higher than El Salvador. 61 murders per 100,000 people in St. Louis, only 54 in El Salvador. In Baltimore, the homicide rate of 51 per 100,000 was higher than Honduras and nearly the same as El Salvador. What is really, really telling in all of this, when you look at the cities with the highest homicide rates, you do realize how many of them are and have been for decades run exclusively by Democrats. Just a little something for you to think about. All of these cities run by Democrats, and the murder rates are higher than the countries, allegedly, that people are fleeing and coming into our country illegally. What's wrong with that picture? But to add insult to injury, African Americans, arguably the most loyal faction of the Democrat Party, are the ones that are going to be impacted the most by illegal immigration. The folks who will lose their jobs, the folks who will have their quality of life devalued more than any other, are African Americans. But Democrats will have you believe, well, them conservatives, them folks, them Republicans, they don't care nothing about brown-skinned people. Well, what about you letting all these brown-skinned people in at the expense of black people? What's so ironic to me is how Democrats will try to paint Republicans and conservatives as the ones who are racist. They don't like brown people. They're trying to keep all the Latinos and Hispanics out of America. Well, if conservatives are racist for trying to keep brown-skinned people out, what are you for letting brown-skinned people in at the expense of resources that could help black people? Didn't think about it that way, did you? Little something to make you go, And speaking of racism, you do realize, my fellow African Americans, that last week the Democrats called y'all the biggest bunch of racists on the planet. You don't realize it, but they did. Remember the Asian massage parlor shootings in Atlanta? How, even though two of them happened to be white, the victims, how all the media and the liberals got all on this big kick about racism against Asians. Well, according to the latest FBI statistics, you realize who the largest perpetrators are of violence against Asian Americans? Yep, black folk. Look at the numbers. According to the FBI, black people carried out more violent attacks against Asians than any other ethnic group in this country. So if you're railing about all this racism, black folk, they're calling you racist. Read between the lines. First break of today's show. It is Monday, Second segment, so of course that means it's time for another edition of Now That's Just Stupid. And boy, we've got some whoppers for you today. You're going to want to hear this. That's up next on today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show, only on the Pelican. Sit tight.
I owed the IRS $10,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
I'm self-employed and didn't report all my income. They claim I owe a lot more than I do.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
Tax Solutions Now saved my business.
I qualified for the Fresh Start program. I paid less than I owed.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions now.
Call 800-778-4345. 800-778-4345.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to greystonecountryclub.com.
Hi, I'm Hurricane Betsy Barnes.
And I'm Dr. Kay Siller with the Rocket Right Show.
We are two busy blondes on the go showing off life in Louisiana.
Watch us on Pelican Sports Network.
And Talk 107.3 FM. Check local listings for times.
The first big sale of the year is here. The Dream Garage Spring Event is underway at Team Honda. For the first time ever, get $1,250 customer cash on every new 21 Passport, or get 0% for 60 months on every new 21 Pilot at Louisiana's #1 Honda dealer, Team Honda.
Bellello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent. Depend on us for service, for selection, for price. Get huge Whirlpool savings. Shop now and save on Whirlpool appliances throughout the store. Plus, experience our price match guarantee and ask about special financing. You can depend on the know-how of people who live appliances every day. Bellello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent with nationwide buying power.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Manda Fine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Manda Fine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Manda Fine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
Welcome back to today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. It is Tuesday, and of course you know what that means. Second segment of the show on Monday. Forgive me. No wonder Alan was sitting there looking at me like, where'd that other day go? Second segment of the Monday edition of the Clarence Bug Show means it's time for Now That's Just Stupid. You notice it's not spelled S-T-U-P-I-D. That's normal, stupid. But in the wake of what we've become on this planet in recent memory, just when you thought you knew stupid, along comes stupid. We start this one with former First Lady Michelle Obama. A message from the former First Lady to everybody complaining about living in COVID-19 quarantine. Quote, "Welcome to our world." In an interview with The Daily Show's Trevor Noah, promoting her latest health campaign, the two of them talked about her years living in the White House. And Michelle Obama compared it to an older hotel where people need permission to leave. Quote, It almost feels like you were living a sort of quarantine life before all of us were. Well, this is what I tell people. Barack and I are like, what? You can't go out just when you want to? We've been doing that for 8 years. She described the difficulties in just going out of the White House. Quote, you've got security with you at all times. You can't make a move, and you have to think about how your movements impact the rest of the world. Every time we went out, we had to think about it. It's like, who's going to have to shut down what gate? How is it going to disrupt this whole community because the presidential motorcade is coming through? We have to worry about agents and not doing something that will put them in harm's way. And with that background, we're good in quarantine. We're like, welcome to our world, everyone. This is what it's been like. Are you kidding me? First of all, how many of us have a staff, cooks, maids to come in and do everything that we need done? What would you like for dinner tonight? Oh, well, I think I'll have the roast duck and, the candied carrots and some of that champagne we had last night. But this is like our world. Let me get on Air Force One for vacation. Even though my husband flew to Hawaii on Air Force One, I'll take Air Force Two because we're not ready to leave just yet. Oh, and the taxpayers can pick up the tab for that. But our lockdown is just like yours. Welcome to your world. We have to have security everywhere we go. Well, to be honest with you, there's some places in Baton Rouge where if I know I'm going beforehand, I might like to have security too. Difference is, I don't get the taxpayers to pay for mine. But your quarantine is just like mine. Huh. Okay. When I sit down and think about it in those terms, it still comes out to the same thing. Now that's just flat out stupid. But now it gets better. It gets much better. For those of you that are in academic circles, there are certain institutions of higher learning, and I use that term loosely. There are certain institutions of higher learning that automatically come to mind when you think of exclusivity, when you think of the best of the best of the brightest. They automatically come to mind. Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Columbia, Cornell, you know the whole nine. Ironically, in recent memory, pretty much since the beginning of the cancel culture, institutions of higher learning have become bastions of stupid. Oxford University's music department announcing that they are considering proposals that would remove the teaching of sheet music and music notation from their curriculum because of claims that teaching the Western form of music notation has its roots in colonialism and complicity in white supremacy. You heard me right. In response to, wink, wink, widespread Black Lives Matter Europe protesters and the riots in the UK, music educators at Oxford, and I don't think you can call them that anymore, music educators, because they're about the dumbest idiots on the planet, they have decided that we should no longer teach how to read music, sheet music, and music notation because it focuses on white European heritage and culture. Listen at this. These woke educators claim that musical notation, writing notes on the music scale, that in and of itself is a colonialist representational system that has complicity to white supremacy. They also claim, get this, that teaching the piano or conducting an orchestra could cause students of color great distress, as the skills involved are closely tied to white European music. Now, it's one thing for these idiots to be this stupid. It is something else entirely to share this with the rest of an intelligent or semi-intelligent world, claiming music notation is steeped in systemic racism and white supremacy. Well, you specifically mentioned colonization. Here's the funny thing, and what is so ironic is that you would think that an institution of higher learning, just a regular one, not to mention Oxford, would be able to look up relatively easy and find out that music notation goes all the way back to medieval times. This was long before Western colonization and long before Western systemic racism. But that apparently doesn't matter. Instead, let's join the rest of the idiots and let's deprive people of a lifelong appreciation of music. Let's deprive black kids of the sense of accomplishment of learning to read music, learning how harmony and melody work together to produce a final product. Let's deprive them of all of that. And for the record, you idiots, I grew up playing instruments. I played instruments for 14 years. I can't count the number of black kids that I played music with. And the sense of accomplishment, the lifelong enjoyment, you can't measure. But these idiots, at what is arguably the most prestigious institution of higher learning, have jumped on the bandwagon along with the rest of them. It might be funny if it were not so stupid. Bottom of the hour break. We'll get her done. We'll talk more next on the Clarence Bugg Show. Stay close.
Got termites? Get Premier Pest. PremierPestServices.com.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continuing my education, to invest in technology which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
Jaguar Nation, we need your help in masking up Louisiana.
Masking up will slow the spread of COVID-19.
During this time, we must continue to wear a mask. Wash your hands and practice social distancing.
It's important that we continue to abide by the CDC's guidelines to stop the spread.
Jaguar Nation, we challenge you to mask up. gang.
Hello, guys. It's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Caught spiders? Premier Pest Services.
Today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. You know, I am so fortunate in that God has chosen to bless me to stick around for longer than many of my peers. It is a part of the human experience, particularly in today's world, that if you are blessed to live to a certain time, you hopefully gain a greater appreciation for it because you have the luxury of looking back at those that started out with you that are no longer here with you. Hopefully, it gives you a greater appreciation. And one of the things that invariably you will find if you choose to engage in this exercise in retrospection, you find that everything changes. It is probably the most often stated and possibly / overused phrase that it's a different day. Now, you've got to imagine on a planet with this many people, as time goes by, societal trends are going to change. Viewpoints are going to change. Opinions are going to change. That is something that is pretty much ingrained in the human species. But you keep hoping, at least some of us do, at some point, regardless of how rapidly and to what direction things change, we will have sense enough to hold on to the things that have served us well. And if ever you needed a clearer sign that it's a different day, I give you this story. USA Today publishes regularly what they called a, quote, hashtag kind alert, where people do nice things for other people. In a video posted last week, an unidentified young man retrieves a purse that Cindy left on the trunk of her car the night before. The young man can be seen riding by on his bike down the street. He notices the purse, so he stops, goes over, picks up the purse, doesn't even look in it, simply goes up to the front door of the house where the car is parked, rings the doorbell, and it just so happens it's one of the video doorbells, so you can see all of this, rings the doorbell, sets the purse down, and takes off. This video went viral. People were absolutely amazed that this young man did the right thing. A similar act of goodwill was captured by another video doorbell back in February. An unidentified Good Samaritan found Deborah Crosby's wallet at the River City Walmart. The do-gooder then looked at her license, found the address, went to the house, rang the doorbell. He then spoke to the doorbell, video doorbell, left a message saying, "Hi, Miss Crosby, I found your wallet at the Walmart in River City. I'm going to put it by the Amazon boxes." Both of these stories went absolutely viral. Now, let me say for the record, as a product of the baby boomer generation and the product of two very wonderful parents, some great, marvelous public school teachers, and some amazingly dedicated neighbors, I can understand feeling good about a young person doing something good. I get it. But it's bothersome that we have arrived at a point in our society where doing the right thing is celebrated in such a fashion. Now listen, don't get me wrong. Please, don't get it twisted. There is something to be said about, in today's world, a young person doing the right thing. But there's also something to be said about that being expected. I don't know about where you grew up, but where I grew up, all black community, most parents there had an expectation that we would do the right thing. Anything other than that was not acceptable. That's why, as a young kid, if I got caught, or any other child for that matter, in the neighborhood, got caught doing something they had no business doing, something they clearly knew was wrong, something was clearly outside the established boundaries, they would tear your butt up right then and right there. And after that, you were deathly afraid of going home, because you knew by the time you got home, they had picked up the phone and called your parents, identified themselves, said, "Hey, Miss Hazel," my late mother's first name, "you're not going to believe why I had to just whip Clarence." "Mary, no." "Yeah, Miss Hazel, what did he do?" And Miss Mary would lay it out. And Lord help when I got home, because not only, number one, did you embarrass yourself, you also embarrassed the family, and you also put a neighbor in a position to have to do something that made me look like I don't discipline my children. A late dear friend of mine used to claim that he could trace just about all of our problems back to two things: air conditioning and canned biscuits. First time I heard my dear departed friend Ben Melanson say this, I chuckled. I said, okay, this has got to be good. This has got to be good. All of our problems, most of them, go back to air conditioning and canned biscuits? How in the world is that, Ben? He said, well, I'll tell you. Back in the day, before we had air conditioning, in the cool of the evening, everybody was out on the porch. You watched your kids play. You watched the neighbors' kids play. You got to know who your kids' friends were. You got to know who your kids' friends' parents were. And we developed a community-wide bond where we all looked out for one another. We all taught great values, and we all made sure that everyone was treated the way they should be. Once we got air conditioning, everybody went inside. We no longer know our neighbors. We no longer know our children's friends. And we certainly have no clue on who our children's friends' parents are. Then you look up all of a sudden, officer, I don't know how that AK-47 got in my son's closet. Well, if you'd been spending a little time to find out who your child is hanging out with and what kind of influences your child's friends had growing up, maybe you wouldn't be entertaining that problem. So I said, okay, all right, I can kind of buy that. I see the air conditioning. Where's the canned biscuit part come in? He said, well, the other myriad of problems that we have can be traced back, in many instances, to a lack of parenting and single-parent households. And I guess he saw the look on my face and said, now, wait a minute. I will be the first to acknowledge there are some great single parents out there. But the fact of the matter is, divorce is destroying many communities and hampering kids for the rest of their lives. I said, okay, but where do the canned biscuits come in? I'm waiting on the punchline. He said, well, back in the day, when a guy met a woman, and he came over for dinner, and that woman would reach into the canister that held flour in the kitchen, and she'd sling that flour across the counter. She'd make up that dough, reach in the cabinet, grab a glass, and cut those biscuits out by hand. When she put those puppies in the oven, you knew, oh, bruh, I got a woman that can burn. She can handle it. Back then, you might think twice about divorcing that woman. But now, you go to the grocery store, Mrs. Pillsbury got you covered. I don't need you to make them biscuits for me. I can make my own damn biscuits. So out you go, out the house, and even worse, out of your children's lives. Air conditioning and canned biscuits. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Final break of today's show. We'll get her done. We'll come back, put that big old pretty bow on this puppy, and we wrap up today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show, only on the Pelican. Stay close.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Manda Fine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Manda Fine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Manda Fine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
From appetizers, pasta dishes, and entrees, La Contea takes pride in preparing all the Italian cuisine we know you love. Enjoy live music every Thursday through Saturday from 6 to 9, happy hour weekdays from 3 to 6, and brunch on Sundays from 11 to 2, as well as dinner portion-sized lunch specials for under $10. Visit our website to view our menu and book a party or meeting in our large banquet room. Once you try La Contea, your Italian dining will change forever.
The selection is deep, and the time to get a used car is right now from the Team Automotive Group. Shop and save on over 125 certified vehicles and choose from more than 700 pre-owned vehicles at any of our team locations. Or log on anytime at teamautouse.com.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling. Nothing could ever bring me down. Nothing could ever bring me down. Taste the feeling.
Sometimes life is wonderful, and sometimes it's not. Cherish the good, but always be prepared for life's challenges. At Private Healthcare, we provide the peace of mind you deserve. With Private Healthcare, you'll get the coverage you want and healthcare you need. If your employer doesn't supply healthcare coverage and you don't qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, you need to give us a call right now. Private Healthcare is private health insurance for ages 65 and under with medical, dental, vision, and even prescription coverage. When life comes at you unexpectedly, you need to be ready. And health insurance is your financial safety net. Health insurance has never been so easy and affordable. If you're looking for health coverage at the best price and your annual household income is $35,000 or more, call the number on the screen now and speak with a live healthcare consultant. Don't wait. Get the coverage you need now.
Back to the final segment of today's edition of the Clarence Buck Show. Marty, is that timer right? I noticed we're a little fat this time. Okay. I thought I had nailed the others, but obviously I didn't. That's why I got Marty here. Thank you kindly, sir. Don't know how many of you SWAC football fans have heard, but the Grambling State University football team has canceled their games for the next 2 weeks. Obviously, COVID-19 concerns. Texas Southern, Alabama State, both of those games in the future have been canceled. That being said, I know what you're already thinking. Oh, Lord, if you said Grambling and games canceled, what does that mean for the Bayou Classic? Well, as it stands at this juncture, the Bayou Classic is still on, as it stands now. Nothing has been revealed to the contrary. So hopefully that will remain the case. But it obviously would be prudent to keep an eye on the situation, because with COVID being what COVID is, there's no telling between now and then what may happen. So those of you that are already secured your tickets, made reservations for Shreveport, et cetera, be advised that it is a fluid situation, and God only knows what's going to happen between now and then. Speaking of between now and then, there is a move afoot in Washington, D.C., and you have heard a lot about this already. You are going to hear a heck of a lot more before all is said and done. It is a narrative that is being pushed by the Democrats, by the liberals/progressives, Hollywood, and those with an agenda. You are going to hear, and have already heard incessantly, this narrative that conservatives/Republicans only want to deny black people the right to vote. That's why Georgia came up with the voter ID law, and this is as un-American a proposition as you will ever find in your life. Personally, I call it bovine fecal matter. It's a family show, so I can't really say what I really think it is. But this is another glaring, classic, telltale example of just how out of touch with regular Americans Hollywood, Democrats, and the media all are. They will have you to believe that simply requiring someone to have a photo ID when they vote is racist. They would have you believe that requiring you to be able to show some form of picture ID when you vote is an exercise in voter suppression. Well, recently, the Gallup polling organization conducted a poll to find out what do American voters think about requiring someone to have an ID, picture ID, to vote. despite what those on the left, despite what the media, despite what Hollywood would have you to believe, the overwhelming majority of Americans are of the opinion, well, yeah, you got to have a picture ID to vote. How else do we know you are who you say you are? And if you are not who you say you are, and you're voting, are you not corrupting what is arguably our most sacred right? 77% of registered voters across the board, that's black, white, Latino, Asian American, Democrat, Republican, 77% of American voters responding to the poll said, oh yeah, you got to have a picture ID to vote. Otherwise, how do we know that you are who you say you are? How do we know you're even eligible to vote? We don't even know if you're a citizen or not. But the media, the left, Hollywood, the media, would have you think, oh, having to be able to tell somebody who they are, that's racist. Only 15% of the folks polled say it's a bad idea. Get these numbers. 92% of Republicans, 75% of Democrats, 75% of independents, and 63% of Democrats support voter ID. Well, but not Clarence, that's because the conservatives and the Democrats and the independents, those that think that way, they're racist. Well, listen at these numbers then. A majority of black and Hispanic voters say, yeah, you got to have photo ID, otherwise you corrupt the process. How do we know you are who you say you are? Common sense, right? I'm sorry, forgive me. Common sense and liberals, oil and water, right? For black voters, 64% said, yeah, you got to have a picture ID. Otherwise, you corrupt the process. Only 22% said no. Hispanics, 78% said yes, you got to have photo ID. Only 16% said no. Now get this. Of the voters who supported Joe Biden in 2020, 62% said, yeah, you got to have a picture ID because, you know, we don't know who you are. These are the folks that voted for Biden. And yet, the media, the liberals, progressives, Hollywood, would have you believe that taking steps to ensure one of our most treasured rights is racist. You know, at some point, you start to think they only come up with this crap because they think you're stupid enough to swallow it. They only come up with this stuff because they figure, oh, these ignoramuses, they won't know any better. Tell them, you know. And if all else fails, if what you told them the first time didn't work, bam, play the race card. The overwhelming majority of our fellow Americans, black, white, Latino, whomever, the overwhelming majority of them say, well, yeah, you got to have a photo ID to vote. That's just common sense. But like is the case with so many other things in America and the world, these clowns apparently know better about what's best for you and me and this country than anybody else. Despite what the overwhelming majority of us think, They know better. Of course, now, this is the same group of people that are of the opinion they were appointed to rule instead of elected to serve. See, when you serve someone, how would you feel if the next time you go out to dinner, your server puts the menu on the table and says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'll be your server today. You're going to have the roast beef with a baked potato and iced tea." Excuse me? Yeah. You're going to have roast beef, baked potato, and iced tea. Yeah, but that's not what I want. I know better than you. I'm the server. That's the equivalent of what they're saying. Yeah, but I got a taste for seafood. I've been having it all week. I don't care about that. I'm telling you what you're going to have. It might be comical if it weren't so freaking stupid. Do you realize in Louisiana and any other number of places, you got to have a picture ID to buy a freaking pack of cigarettes? Do you realize in Louisiana and many other places, you have to have a picture ID to buy a can of beer? You realize you got to have a picture ID to get on an airplane and go visit Aunt Martha up in Jersey. You got to have a picture ID to drive a car. You got to have a picture ID. I don't have enough time left to tell you how many things you have to have a picture ID for. But to ensure what is arguably the most precious right that I have, that and the Second Amendment, you're going to tell me it's racist to ask for a picture ID? Well, wait a minute. 68% of black folk don't think it's racist. So who are you trying to convince here that it's racist? If Latino voters overwhelmingly support voter ID, say, it's not racist, it's secure in the system. If the overwhelming majority of African Americans say it's not racist, it's ensuring the integrity of the system. Who are you, or better yet, who died and left you in charge of determining what's best for me and what is or is not racist? But you see, when you have an agenda, when you have a quest for power, when the last thing on your mind is ensuring the integrity of the system, you come up with all sorts of foolishness. And if all else fails, bam, play the race card. America is getting sick and tired of being sick and tired behind this crap. And when said crap hits the fan, you folks will have no one to blame but your little old lonesome. Consider yourselves forewarned. At some point, rational, sensible, common sense thinking people are going to revolt. And as much as it pains me to say it, it ain't going to be pretty. So the sooner we can get a handle on all of this foolishness, the better off you, me, and America will be. Speaking of America, my time's up and I gotta go. But this day, maybe more so than any other, I give it to you. America, we ain't perfect, but for this old boy's money, it's still the best there is. And God knows there is no place else on his green earth that I'd rather be. Speaking of the good Lord, you do realize by now that he loves you, right? And I hope you know that I do too. Good news is, there ain't a doggone thing you can do about either one. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.